up this little article that came out a couple of years ago, April 24th, 2018, from Alternative News. And this article reads, US government accidentally releases, electromagnetic mind control documents in FOIA request. So that's Freedom of Information Act, the FOIA. There is the thumbnail picture. When researcher Curtis Waltman of the website Muckrock received files resulting from his Freedom of Information Act request on Antifa and white supremacist groups, and again, is this mind control being used to create a following for groups like white supremacist and Antifa, maybe Black Lives Matter? These are very, very prominent in contemporary times, in maybe in a city near you, protesting, rioting, and looting while chanting "No justice, no peace," and also asking maybe to defund the police force while they are at it. And as I said, is this as a result of electromagnetic mind control? Who knows? I wouldn't rule it out as a possibility or probability. But anyway, he wanted some information that he requested using the Freedom of Information Act on these little subculture groups from the Washington State Fusion Center, and he got a little more than he bargained for in an unrelated zip file entitled "EM Effects on Human Body." Within the file were three diagrams that were present information on electromagnetic weapons targeting the human body and brain. The first diagram, more specifically entitled Psychoelectronic Weapon Effects, seems to detail the potential use of such weapons, focusing on both the mind and physical discomfort. And this is the diagram here. I'm not going to read all these things. You can look at it yourself and pause at will. So they're using this electromagnetic frequencies to get inside of the mind and the body of individuals and causing them discomfort, pain, suffering, maybe amnesia, fatigue, tiredness, frustrations, anxiety. A whole level of things can be manipulated and stimulated using EMFs and such forth, like heart rates, things like this. And we are creatures that do produce our own little electromagnetic pulses of our own, and the brains and the thoughts are in fact little electro charges shooting through our nervous system. So by using technology that may be able to distort this you could potentially create your own Manchurian candidates or mind control drones at a whim. So there you go. As I said, if you wish to kind of pause and read that yourself and inform yourself of what it does. So that was the first diagram there, and it's got a date on there, 1974, and that is the psychoelectronic weapon effects and how they can affect either one or multiple symptoms using this technology. So the next diagram indicates other processes by which electromagnetic mind control could be employed using the mobile phone networks, or more locally from the ground or from the air, by targeting specific individuals or groups of individuals with psychotronic weapons. Different frequencies are described to be able to impact different areas of a brain. So you could implant your own thoughts and ideas into the individual of somebody who thinks that they're their own thoughts and ideas, but in actual fact they have come from a computer algorithm and artificial intelligence. So again, there's a little bit of the diagram there, and you can kind of see, I guess, at the top here, I don't know if you can see that. That would be maybe like 5G, 4G, 3G cell phone towers where they kind of bounce and transmit digital wavelengths that we take for granted each and every day. You could also maybe have like vans and things that travel around neighborhoods, transmitting through the houses, as well as helicopters or aircraft that can transmit it down from above in the air into an area below. And again, maybe a small area. A neighborhood or something, you could fly a helicopter over, and it's planting these electromagnetic frequencies into the minds of the inhabitants below, and then they have no idea that they're being mind controlled, and then may go out and behave in a certain way. They may get triggered if they see someone not wearing a mask at their local Starbucks. They might get upset if perhaps you don't support Black Lives Matter or something like this, and are these electromagnetic fields and frequencies being used to manipulate the minds? I certainly would suggest that this is quite possibly what is going on in today's society, and why we have seen so many people who seem to be so immersed in, submerged within this COVID mainstream narrative that seems to defy all kind of logic and rationality, as well as sort of medical expert advice. Everything they're being telling us seems to go against the grain of everything we've ever been taught. But some people believe it. People that wear masks in their cars when they're on their own, perhaps. These people might have had their minds controlled and fried so much by EMFs that their mind isn't their own anymore. They are completely subservient to their masters, who will be transmitting these frequencies on a daily basis, perhaps hourly, minutely, who knows. But the third one speaks more about the mapping of human brainwave frequencies, and mentions that each human body has a unique bioelectromagnetic field, which presumably would give users of advanced technologies the ability to locate any individual in the world based on this signature. Kind of a little bit like DNA and fingerprints, but maybe even more unique. And again, having these electromagnetic fields, maybe people with similar electromagnetic fields might be targeted for certain mind control programming, if you feel what I'm saying there. So they could follow people around at a whim using this spectrum of field of electromagnetic wavelengths. These diagrams appear to be in presentation documents coming from different sources, potentially being used as data points in discussions on how to research and develop psychotronic weapons. These documents do not reveal in the way of wiki links what shadow government agencies like the NSA have done are capable of. Curiously, some of these images appear in an article in Nexus magazine describing a 1992 lawsuit brought by John Sinclair Akiyu against the National Security Agency. And Akiyi, whatever his name is, claimed that the NSA had the ability to assassinate US citizens covertly, or run covert psychological control operations to cause subjects to be diagnosed with ill mental health, and was documented in their alleged methods. For those who are able to follow it from there, the trail to this article leads down a rabbit hole of information and resources that describes various aspects of the mind control efforts on targeted individuals by the deep state agencies. While the secret capabilities of such agencies has been among the most closely guarded information around, the likes of have been the most guarded information around, the likes of Edward Snowden have helped us awaken to their existence. Now, something I've always said, no one blows whistles that aren't meant to be heard. And Edward Snowden, I believe, was a psychological operation all of his own that was kind of used to bring about some knowledge that there are shadow governments and nefarious goings on within these deep state agencies, the alphabet agencies, the FBI, the CIA, the NSA, the ATF, all of these people. Well, I don't think the ATF exists anymore. What we can make of this particular drop of information parenting to mind control capabilities, though, as Waltman notes, it's entirely unclear how this ended up in this release. It could have been meant for another release, it could have been gathered for an upcoming WSFC report, or it could even be from the personal files of an intelligence officer that somehow got mixed up with the release. A call to the WSFC went unreturned as part of the press release, so until we can hear back, their presence remains a mystery. The only possibility that Waltman doesn't cover is that this file was released to him intentionally by an operator who wanted to proliferate this information to new sets of eyes and be part of the disclosure of hidden information the public needs to know about. Unlikely, perhaps, but stranger things have happened, and indeed they have. So, let me know what you think. Was this article meant to be leaked? Is there any validity to it, or is it, just nonsensical jargon, misinformation designed to remove us from the particular rabbit hole that we might be going down, looking into mind control and electromagnetic and low wave frequencies? So, mind control by cell phones. Cell phones, almost everybody has one, or at least there is one within a household, I'd have to say. Also, probably multiple cell phone devices in the household, be it a cell phone or a tablet. These things all use the same kind of technology and frequencies and wavelength. So, are electromagnetic signals from cell phones being used to change your brainwaves and behavior? But don't break out your tinfoil hat just yet. So there's a picture of a 5G tower. So let's get into what they're saying. Hospitals and aeroplanes ban the use of cell phones because of their electromagnetic transmissions, and they can interfere with sensitive electrical devices. So could the brain also fall into that category? Of course. All our thoughts, sensations, and actions arise from bioelectricity generated by neurons and transmitted through a complex neural circuits inside our skull. Electrical signals between neurons generate electric fields that radiate out of brain tissues as electrical waves that can be picked up by electrodes touching a person's scalp. A little bit like static electricity. Measurements of such brainwaves in EEGs provide powerful insight into brain function and a valuable diagnostic tool for doctors. Indeed, so fundamental are brainwaves to the internal workings of the mind, they have become the ultimate legal definition, drawing the line between life and death. Brainwaves change a healthy person's conscious and unconscious mental activity and state of arousal, but scientists can do more with brainwaves than just listen in on the brain at work. They can selectively control brain function by transcranial magnetic stimulation, TMS, not TMI, TMS, transcranial magnetic stimulation. This technique uses powerful pulses of electromagnetic radiation beamed into a person's brain to jam or excite particular brain circuits, and maybe using things like 5G or Skylink satellite rockets in the sky floating around in space orbiting the globe. They could be shooting down electromagnetic pulses into our minds every single minute of the day, and we'd never even know about it. Although cell phone is much less powerful than TMS, the question still remains, could the electrical signals coming from a phone affect certain brainwaves operating in the Renaissance with cell phone transmission frequencies? After all, the caller's cerebral cortex is just centimeters away from a radiation broadcast from the phone's antenna. Two studies provide some revealing news. The first, led by Rodney Croft of Brain Science Institute Swinburne, University of Technology in Melbourne, Australia, tested whether cell phone transmissions could alter a person's brainwaves. The research monitored the brainwaves of 120 healthy men and women while a Nokia 6110 cell phone, 6110, one of the most popular cell phones in the world, was strapped to their head. A computer controlled the phone's transmissions in a double-blind experimental design, which meant that neither the test subject nor the researcher knew whether the cell phone was transmitting or ideal. While EEG data were collected, the data showed that when the cell phone was transmitting, the power of a characteristic brainwave pattern called alpha waves in a person's brain was boosted significantly. The increased alpha wave activity was greatest in brain tissue directly beneath to the cell phone, strengthening the case that the phone was responsible for the observed effect. Alpha waves of the brain fluctuate at a rate of 8 to 12 cycles per second hertz. These brain waves reflect a person's state of arousal and attention. Alpha waves, generally regarded as the indicator of reduced mental effort, cortical idling, or mind wandering. But this conventional view is perhaps an oversimplification. Croft, for example, argues that the alpha wave is really regulating the shift of attention between external and internal inputs. Alpha waves increase in power when the person shifts his or her consciousness to the external world or to internal thoughts. Of her consciousness of the external world to internal thoughts. They also are the key brainwaves signature of sleeps. Cell phones and insomnia. Insomnia is something I suffer from, as some of you also do, I'm pretty aware or sure of. If cell phone signals boost a person's alpha waves, does this nudge them subliminally into ordered states of consciousness? Does it trigger them to behave like Karens get angry if you see people not wearing masks? For example, maybe if people spend more time on specific apps, like for example, let's say you're on Instagram and you spend most of your time looking on Instagram as your social media activity and your social media platform of choice, then maybe that might even induce a certain thought pattern within the masses of people that are receptacle to that. And maybe if you use Twitter or Facebook, then maybe a different side of programming might be targeted using certain electromagnetic frequencies and stuff forth, if you get what I'm trying to say here. So maybe this is how and why we're seeing all these kind of divisions within divisions, and we're seeing splinter groups and subcultures like Antifa, BLM, and the Manchurian Karens and the COVIDiots and the maskers and the non-maskers. Maybe all of this is a result of electromagnetic mind control. But anyway, can they order a state of conscious or have any effect on the workings of their mind? And can that be observed in a person's behavior? In the second study, James Horn and colleagues at the Loughborough University Sleep Research Centre in England devised an experiment to test this question. The result was surprising. Not only could the cell phone signals alter a person's behavior during the call, the effects of the disrupted brainwave patterns continued long after the phone was switched off. Very interesting stuff, guys. And as I said, we all carry around a cell phone with us in our close proximity at almost any given time, and even when we are sleeping or relaxing, our phone is probably not without of reach and probably within close enough proximity to penetrate the skull with electromagnetic pulses, if indeed that is what they are doing. This was completely unexpected finding. Horn told me we didn't suspect any effect of EEG after switching off the phone. We were interested in studying the effect on mobile phone signals on sleep itself, but quickly became obvious to Horn and his colleagues in preparing for the sleep research experiments that some of the test subjects had difficulty falling asleep. Horn and his colleagues controlled a Nokia 6310 cell phone, another popular and basic phone, attached to the head of 10 healthy people, but sleep-deprived men in their sleep research lab. Their sleep had been restricted to 6 hours the previous night. The researchers then monitored the men's brainwaves by EEG while the phone was switched on and off by remote computer, also switched between standby, listen and talk modes. The operation for 30-minute intervals on different nights. The experiment revealed that after the phone was switched to talk mode, a different brainwave pattern called delta waves in the range of 1 of 4 hertz remained dampened for nearly 1 hour after. Again, this is what we're saying to certain, like they're saying that when it was in talk mode, it had an effect in a different way and do these apps. Do they have waves, targets, colors, sights, sounds, things like that will trigger and alter the way the mind thinks and reacts. So after an hour was shut off, they continued to see these symptoms. These brainwaves are not the most reliable and sensitive marker for stage 2 sleep. Approximately 50% of total sleep consists of this stage, and subjects remained awake twice as long after the phone's transmitting in talk mode was shut off. Although the test subjects had been sleep deprived the night before, they could not fall asleep for nearly 1 hour after the phone had been operating without their knowledge. And again, when you start suffering from insomnia and you start losing sleep, something you never really truly catch up on unless you sort of take a week off work or something and just sleep and catch up and recharge. But it will have an effect. You will feel fatigued. You will feel a little bit distracted, maybe hard to concentrate and focus. It may start having some irrational thought patterns as a result of sleep deprivation. But although his research shows that the cell phone transmissions can affect a person's brainwaves with persistent effects on behavior, Horn does not feel there is any need for concern that cell phones are damaging. I would probably suggest that they do have a little bit of a damaging effect on the mind of the individual and the minds of society, perhaps. The arousal effects the researchers measured are equivalent to about half a cup of coffee. So a little bit of a stimulant effect there, like caffeine or maybe cocaine even. But many other factors in a person's surroundings will affect the night's sleep much more than the cell phone. The significance of the research is, although the cell phone power is low, electromagnetic radiation can nevertheless have an effect on the mental behavior when transmitting at the proper frequency. And again, are they transmitting at the proper frequencies, multiple proper frequencies that are ordering the mind control of certain groups and thus ordering their behavioral patterns and kind of having them, as we said, as some kind of Manchurian candidates, Manchurian hive minds. I don't know if that would be correct, but hopefully you understand the point I'm trying to make here. When what I'm saying there, can they use this technology to create hive minds that will act in an according manner, in a similar manner, sharing the same thoughts and directive, perhaps? In our modern world, cell phones in talk mode seem to be particularly well tuned into frequencies that affect the brainwave. The results show sensitivity to low-level radiation to a subtle degree. These findings open the door by a crack for more research to follow. Only one wonders if different doses, durations of other devices would be greater effects. And, Android and iPhone, they're forever, ever upgrading their operating system. And each and every time do they, increase, decrease, or add different directives and programmings into the mind control. Croft and Swinburne emphasize that there are no health worries from these new findings. Of course they're not. It's not a lie if you believe it, Croft and Swinburne. The exciting thing about this research is it allows us to have a look how you might modulate brain function, and this tells us something about how the brain works on a fundamental level. In other words, the importance of the work is illuminating the fundamental workings of brain science, and now can splash away with our own self-generated electromagnetic waves and learn a great deal how brain waves respond to what they do. So that was that little article there. Interesting stuff. But as I said, guys, I got like a theory and had thoughts that, they are somehow using frequencies or electromagnetic fields to control and manipulate the minds of the masses. And if you're somebody perhaps who spends a lot of time watching mainstream media or using social media for hours and hours and hours in a day, are you more susceptible to this mind control if you're making yourself, what's the word I'm looking for? If you're kind of constantly being bombarded by this, then will you this increase the risk or the probability that you will be have your mind ordered with these electromagnetic wavelengths and ultra low frequencies? Right, this will be the last little article we will look into. It is a very long one. It might be one of those that I might have to remember to put the link in the description. But anyway, total population control, excuse me. Maybe some electromagnetic fields are at work now, causing me to speak like a retard. And I don't mean that in any derogatory way. I just couldn't think of another word to describe the way I was talking. But anyway, this is a highly revealing and insightful overview of ELF, GWN towers, and HARP interconnection. And as I said, it is a very, very long article, so we might not look at it all, but I will try to remind myself to copy and paste the link in the description so you can read it for itself. And it's got some interesting stuff about chemtrails, HARP, CERN, all this stuff here. So this was a website a few months ago. They might be Nicholas Jones, who is a BBC journalist and author of 2 books on spin control, and this came out in July of 2002, I believe. So what they're saying is Earth is wrapped in a donut-shaped magnetic field. Circular lines of magnetic flux continuously descend into the North Pole and emerge from the South Pole, the ionosphere, and electromagnetic wave conductor. 100 kilometers, 62 miles above the Earth, consists of a layer of electrically charged particles acting as a shield from solar wind. So the Earth resonant frequency, natural waves are created which result from electrical activity in the atmosphere. They are thought to be caused by multiple lightning storms. Collectively, these waves are called the Schumann resonance, with the strongest current registering at 7.8 hertz. These are quasi-standing, extremely low frequency ELF waves that naturally exist in the Earth's electromagnetic cavity, which is the space between ground and the ionosphere. These Earth brain waves are identical to the frequency spectrum of our human brains. A little bit there about frequencies and stuff. So anyway, HARP, the creator designed living beings to resonate in the 11 natural Schumann resonance frequency pulsation in order to evolve harmoniously. Excuse me. Some difficulty with big words. The ionosphere is being manipulated by US government scientists using the Alaskan transmitter called HARP, the High Frequency Active Aurora Research Program, which sends focused radiated power to heat up sections of the ionosphere, which bounces power down again. ELF waves produced from HARP, when targeted on selected areas, can weather engineer and create mood changes affecting millions of people. Something I've mentioned before, I'm sure, on previous episodes on this channel, is I grew up in the United Kingdom, where it's very, very grey and very, very wet for the majority of the time. We always seem to have rain and fog, or cloudy skies, and this really does have an impact on the mind. You do feel very, very miserable and depressed and a little bit melancholy when it is grey, overcast and damp. Don't really feel like doing anything. On contrast, when it's hot, sunny and warm, the skies are blue, the birds are out, the trees are green, the plants are out. You feel like being outside and you've got a little bit of energy and feel good going for you. So, HAARP is being used to manipulate the weather. But anyway, geomagnetic waves and Gwen. 64 elements in the ground modulate with variation the geomagnetic waves naturally coming from the ground. The Earth's natural brain rhythm above is balanced with these. These are the same minerals found in red blood corpuscles. There is relation between the blood and geomagnetic waves in abundant no an imbalance between human and geomagnetic waves disrupts these biorhythms. Again, by putting out disruptive wavelengths and frequencies might be affecting the brain waves and thought capacity of many individuals that are targeted and subject to this psychological weaponry. The natural geomagnetic waves are being replaced by artificial created low frequency ground waves coming in. Again, these could be coming out of our cell phones, out of 4G, 5G towers, out of our TV, out of our refrigerator, out of a whole host of smart technology, Wi-Fi, all this stuff that we're surrounded by now. Ground wave emergency network transmitters, GWENs, placed 200 miles apart across the USA, allow specific frequencies to be tailored to the geomagnetic field strength in Earth area, allowing the magnetic field to be ordered. They operate in the LF, low frequency range, with transmissions between 150 and 175. They also emit waves from the upper VHF to the lower UHF range of 225 to 400 megahertz. The LF frequency signals travel by waves that hug the ground rather than radiating into the atmosphere. A GWEN station transmits in a 360-degree circle up to 300 miles, the signal dropping off sharply with distance. The entire GWEN system consists of, depending on source of data, from 58 to an intended 300 transmitters spread across the USA, each with a tower 299 to 500 feet high, copper wires in a spoke-like fashion fan out from the base of the system underground. The US is bathed in this magnetic field, which can rise from the ground to 500 feet and goes down into basements. So everyone can be affected and mind controlled. The entire artificial ground wave spreads out over the whole of the USA like a web, and it's easier to mind control and hypnotize people who are bathed in an artificial electromagnetic wave. And what I'm suggesting are people being hypnotized by these electromagnetic waves to behave in the ways we are seeing in today's society. And this is what they use GWEN transmitters for: controlling the weather, mind control, behavior and mood control, synthetic telepathy, infrasound to victims with US government mind control implants. And it works in conjunction with HAARP and the Russian woodpecker transmitter, which is similar to HAARP. Does the same thing to 100 miles. So as I said, this is a very long article. I'll try and, if I don't remember to put the link in the description, you can kind of maybe pause and read at your leisure. In 1963, Robert Beck, explored effects of external magnetic fields on brainwaves, showing a relationship between psychiatric admissions and solar magnetic storms. He exposed volunteers to pulsed magnetic fields similar to magnetic storms and found a similar response. Human vulnerability. Dr. Andrea Puharic in the 50s and 60s found that clairvoyance brainwaves became hertz when the psychic powers were operative. She saw an Indian yogi in 56 controlling his brain waves, deliberately shifting his conscious from one level to another, with biofeedback to do this consciously, making 8 hertz waves. A healer made 8 hertz waves pass into a patient, healing their heart trouble, her brain emitting. So using these frequencies, they were able to heal conditions. So as I said, very, very long article. You can stop and read if you wish. Nikola Tesla revealed in 1901 power could be transmitted through the ground using ELF waves. Nothing stops or weakens these signals. The Russians retrieved Tesla's papers when they were fully returned to Yugoslavia after his death. Implants are now smaller than a hair's width and are injected with a vaccine and flu shots. And vaccines are something they're very topical in contemporary times. Good old Bill Gates wants to vaccinate the world to protect us from the COVID-19, the virus with a 99.9% survival rate, but we all need a vaccine. And the reason we possibly need a vaccine is in order to give them greater control over our minds using EMFs, because you can put these implants into the system, biochips and nanotechnology that will order the DNA as well as the way the brain thinks and functions. So these biochips circulate in the bloodstream and lodge in the brain, enabling the victims to hear voices that aren't there via the implants, a sort of text to skull technology. There are many kinds of this implant, and 1 in 40 are victims from alien abduction. Statistics through 1 in 20 is also been gauged. So the fake alien abduction events, these may have been implanted minds using these nanotechnology, electromagnetic brain waves. They've implanted these thoughts into the mind of an unknowing victim who actually really does believe that that is what happened to them, even though they are artificial thoughts, if you see what I'm saying. And again, this is what we're suggesting. Are they using this in order, to make us believe into the COVID narrative? And also, I touched upon this in the recent Project Bluebeam episode that I brought out. Are they, this is something that was part of the Bluebeam directive, that they would be using these electric magnetic fields in ultra low wave frequencies and such forth that we're reading about now, in order to control the minds and make people who are witnessing the holographic false flag event, be it an alien, an asteroid, or a religious type end of days thing. The electromagnetic frequencies pulsed into the mind would help the recipient believe what they were seeing, and maybe they would start hearing voices from God or other religious deities that they may or may not believe in. But it gives them the ability to believe these holographic spaceships and religious people might be real, as we are reading there. With regards to the alien abductees, are we being forced to respond to an artificially induced vibratory rate by the global masters who want this planet to have a sudden leap in evolution? And are we going to start looking? Transhumanism is something that is not too far away and on the cards, and already talking about how they can implement this nanotechnology to improve people with memory loss symptoms, or maybe improve eyesight, stuff like this. And we already have wearables like Bluetooth earbuds, watches that we kind of wear on our wrists. We're already kind of halfway there. We're wearing these gadgets. It's only a matter of time before they actually put these into us, and once these electronics are in us, then maybe even more easy for these governmental agencies to control us using electromagnetic mind control, right? Anyway, there's some more stuff. Electromagnetic diseases, they can induce visions, have side effects. Once diseases are sprayed in the air, electromagnetic waves attuned to the disease using harmonics and subharmonics will make them more lethal. And again, is this what they're doing? Are they spraying COVID-19 into the air and then using these electric magnetic pulses to make more people susceptible to that virus? You see what could be at play here, people, and see what I'm saying? Chemtrails, we're all too familiar with these, or at least you should be. You can't really look up on any given day without possibly seeing one or multiple chemtrails being sprayed all over the United States, North America, the globe has been saturated. These white crisscross patterns, they contain diseases and chemicals which affect our state of consciousness. They can produce apathy, which works in conjunction with fluoridization of the water, as well as aspartame and drugs. Fluoride disables the willpower section of the brain, making us subservient servants, impairing the left occipital. Yeah, that word. Fluoride and selenium enable people to hear voices. You can read that there. Fluoridization of the water, fluoridization in toothpaste, stuff like that. Fluoride is something people consume daily, and it isn't necessarily good for us. Could this be part of a greater plan with mind control transmitters covering the whole of the USA, England, North America, Europe? Cleverly disguised as cell phone towers and trees, the power from microwave towers may be turned up at such a level that people can die. The brain functioning at beta level above 13 is agitated and can't change its perceptions, and these are the people that may be, the beta level frequencies are being used to make people believe in COVID-19, making them wear masks, goggles, gloves, make them social distance, self-isolate, and all that stuff, not fart or not ejaculate, just in case they contaminate themselves, because you can transmit, if you believe the mainstream narrative, COVID through semen and farts. That's how you can spread it. But this may increase body electricity in others, giving them psychic powers. This is linked to the New Agers claiming of a rising Schumann Renaissance, inching us towards a fourth dimension, parallel dimensions, interplanetary portals to who knows what, could be, other parts of the galaxy, wormholes, all this stuff. Are they getting ready for this kind of, is this the next wave of evolution for humanity within the fourth dimension? Are we already living in a holographic augmented reality? Some might suggest we already are, but the fourth dimension, transhumanism, all this kind of stuff isn't too far away. If or not I see it within my lifetime remains to be seen. Fourth dimension. Stimulants ingested globally from caffeine genetically modified plants. Again, we've mentioned Starbucks in previous videos and how popular they are and how many people are, addicted to caffeine. But caffeine is found in, soda pops, tea, coffee, a whole host of things, well, as like medication. Can't really get away with it. A little bit like fluoride, pushing these drugs into our system that will, reduce our brain capacity or make us irrationally behaved. However, some ETs may be local boys. Voices in the head were produced in prisoners in Utah. Prisoners using Telsa technology. Each of the prisoners received the same message from an extraterrestrial. Today, it seemed easy to produce voices in the head without implants. Wavelength, cell phones, earbuds, all this stuff could be used to carry out this, or deliver this technology's message to our brains, right? A prisoner named David Fratus in Draper Prison, Utah in 88 wrote, I began to receive or hear high frequency tones in my ears. Something I often hear is a ringing in my ears, a little bit like you've been to a concert or a nightclub and you've been too close to the speakers. Always hear a whistling. Almost can't recall of times when I don't hear it. But anyway, this guy, he said he heard frequencies in his ears. When he plugged his ears, the tones are still inside and becoming amplified. It's as if they had become electrified echo chambers with the sounds coming from inside out. I began to hear voices in my inner ear as vivid as though I was listening to a set of stereo headphones, with the end result being that I am now having my brain monitored by an omnipotent computerized mind reading or scanning machine of some sort. Interesting stuff. Now our phones exactly that. Are they omnipotent computerized mind reading devices? They do store and record all of our data, and they do have artificial intelligence in them. Hundreds of inmates at Gunnison facility in Utah were subjected to this brand of mind control in order to test it in the early 70s. This was brought out of the Utah U.S. District Court because inmates who had been subjected to this Tulsa wave mind control in prison had tried unsuccessfully to fight back in court. So again, tracking, they can use this. Computers using artificial intelligence monitor the victims of government implants, sending pre-recorded sound bites or occasional live messages. They are picked up by satellite and relayed to large TV broadcasting antenna. This inner cerebral hearing, this was written by some guy in the UK, Tim Riffrath. Using intercerebral hearing is used to drive a victim mad, and as no one else can hear the voices transmitted into the brain of the target, transmission of auditory data directly into the target's brain using microwave carrier beams is now common practice. Instead of using I can't read that word. One uses a transducer to modify the spoken word into ELF audiograms that then are superimposed on a pulse modulated microwave beam. Another source says that these have been fed with the world's languages, and synthetic telepathy will reach into people's head, making people believe God is speaking to them. Again, this was something that was implemented into the Project Balloon Beam protocol. They're going to use these frequencies to plant messages into people's head, believing it's either the aliens or God or whatever they're using as their source in the source of fear in the next psyop that could be a holographic alien or religious event. So as we said, guys, very, very, very long article, although we are nearly at the bottom of it now. Thought control, subliminal words in the correct electromagnetic field that expresses human consciousness attuned to the human brain can enter our minds at a subconscious level. Our brain activity patterns can apparently be measured and stored on computer by supercomputers. If the victim needs subliminal thoughts implanted, all that is necessary to capture, save on a computer, and target the person's brainwave patterns to send them such low frequency subliminal message that they can actually think it's their own thoughts. And this has been confirmed by these people, Preston Nichols, Ali Biotech, and the Montauk project, with the Montauk project in Long Island. And the Montauk project is what the popular Netflix show Stranger Things is based on. So as we said, are they using this technology to control our thoughts? And I would have to suggest that they really, really are. There you go. You can read that for yourself, as we are nearly at the end of this. And as I said, it was a very, very long article, and you can read some of it yourself. So in Let's Talk Montauk, Joyce Murphy shows that experiments on the 410-420 megahertz cycle had been done, which could affect the window frequency to the human consciousness as a whole. He used this radio equipment to learn that whenever a 410-420 megahertz signal is appeared on the air, the psychic's mind would be jammed, tracing the signal to a Montauk point at the red and white radar antenna on the Air Force Base. Sure, that means something to somebody. But that is the entirety of this very, very long and interesting article. And as I said, I will try to remember to put the link in the description so you can read it at leisure yourself. Now, all it remains is to wrap this feature presentation up that was brought to you from Shit Video Productions on behalf of Reality Decoded. And until next time, take care and be excellent to each other.
Sit, Ubu, sit. Good dog.